Hi, my name is Jessa and I am a therapist at Pyramid Psychology. For this video I'd like to talk about conflict, and in particular the conflict that can occur in the relationship between parents and teens. So before I get started, I think it's really important to know that conflict is normal. It's not always the most fun thing to experience or go through, but it does provide a lot of opportunity to role model effective problem-solving skills, just how to deal with the conflict that does arise and will arise in future relationships, and even to have some accountability for one's own actions and demonstrate forgiveness for self and other people. In terms of teens in particular, it's also very important to know their developmental stage. So part of this is that their brain is still physically developing, and especially that's like their prefrontal cortex, or the decision-making center of their brain. It's undergoing a lot of rapid changes during this time, but that does have an impact on how they present in this world and in their relationships with others. So teens in particular are more likely to be influenced by their amygdala, which is the emotional center of the brain, and that just means that teens are more likely to have emotions that may seem like they're coming out of nowhere. They might be a little bit more impulsive or be frustrated easier, and that's just kind of part of growing up and the adolescent phase. It's also important to know that a normal part of being an adolescent is the quest for independence, and while it can be frustrating as a parent in terms of like your teen pushing these boundaries, or maybe some push and pull in terms of that relationship, it is normal and healthy for teens to be developing their sense of identity, who they are, and as a parent that does come across as conflict sometimes. So just about conflict itself, there tends to be 5 general ways to deal with conflict that people kind of resort to. So I'll go through them really quick, give you a visual, and hopefully it'll make sense. So the first one is accommodating. This is when a person tends to have a low concern for self, but they have a high concern for the other person, and they also place an emphasis on the relationship. So they're more likely just to go along with whatever, kind of go with the flow. The next one I want to talk about is avoiding. This is when the person does not really want to engage in the conflict, so they don't really have a goal they're trying to achieve. They may have less concern, if you want to put it that way, for themselves or for others, and yeah, they're just taking steps to move away from the conflict. Third is competing. So this is when the person really has a high concern for themselves. They want to achieve their goal, so they are willing to go through conflict to try and either get their way or get their point across. They may be less concerned about the relationship if they're using this style of conflict. Next is compromising. So this is kind of a moderate concern for oneself, one's own goals, and also for the other person. It's kind of giving up. Everyone in the conflict gives up a little bit of something so that, yeah, the conflict can be resolved quicker. Last is collaborating, and this is a high concern for others and the relationship while also achieving one's goal. So this means often like finding another alternative way to deal with a problem. And when I say these, it may sound like collaborating is the most effective way to deal with conflict, but the truth is that each of these 5 styles of conflict has a time and a place. So it's not like one is right or wrong, they're just different ways of approaching conflict and different strategies or patterns of behavior that someone may use. So avoiding, for example, well, it kind of maybe seemed negative in this video, it can be very adaptive if people are getting really hot-tempered, emotions are running really high. So taking the strategy of avoiding by taking a step back, maybe taking an hour to go for a walk, it can actually be a really helpful thing. So with that being said, obviously there's no right way how to do this, no one size fits all. It's just understanding the importance of boundaries, of respect for oneself and for others and the relationship, and being able to separate the person from the problem. So language really matters in this regard. Instead of labeling people or jumping to conclusions or name calling, it's coming together as a team and trying to solve the problem that has arisen in the relationship. So as briefly mentioned before, conflict is normal. It's a part of every relationship, and it kind of goes through the cycle of rupture, or maybe when there's conflict, and then the repair. And some experts argue that if there is no ruptures in any relationship ever, then they may be really high in avoidance, which brings its own difficulties. So in terms of conflict, you really want to look at the positives that it brings, even though the feelings may not always tell you that it's a good thing or that it's a nice thing to go through. And also it's important to know that ruptures itself in the relationship are actually opportunities for repair, and those repairs actually strengthen the relationship. Because when you're able to repair a relationship that has been broken or has faced conflict, it tells both people involved that this relationship can withstand problems that can come and will come, that you can be resilient, that you can trust each other, that you have a foundational, fundamental bedrock from which, you know that the relationship can withstand adversary. So instead of seeking perfection or no conflict, when it does come to conflict, it's important to set the realistic expectations of being willing to work on the relationship itself, being willing to make mistakes, to ask for forgiveness, to explain yourself, your point of view, your feelings, and just having a lot of grace, really, for yourself, for your teen, and for the relationship itself. So there's a couple last reminders. When you are experiencing conflict with your teen, one is to not take things personally. That can be a very hard thing to do when this emotional reaction may be coming out of nowhere. But just understanding the developmental stage, the quest for independence, the hormones, the emotions. The teenage years can be a really interesting and turbulent time. Second, it's to still have rules and expectations as a parent. So if your teen is really acting out, behaving inappropriately, being cool, calm, and collected as a parent, being firm that certain behaviors or certain words or actions are not okay, but just giving them the opportunity to change those actions or words, and that from that place of mutual understanding and respect, some sort of agreement can be made together. Another tip is to spot the small wins. So as a parent, it can seem like a losing battle sometimes if your teen's really emotional or frustrated. Just taking a step back, looking at the context of the situation, and seeing the silver lining that it can happen and does happen even in conflict. So for example, maybe you have an argument about chores, your teen's giving you a lot of attitude, telling you why they don't like chores or whatever it may be. But then at the end of the day, when they do come and do their chores, just being able to recognize that you were able to talk about it, they did respect you and still follow through with those expectations. Just to use that as a growth point, a point of discussion, being willing to hear their point of view while still being firm on parent boundaries. And I briefly mentioned this before, but another tip is to not expect perfection, either from yourself as a parent or from your teen. It's just, it creates a lot of pressure and it's unrealistic. And if you can change your thinking from expecting no conflict or perfect or whatever that may be to what humanity is, the messy, the beautiful, and just seeing these moments, this life, this relationship, this phase of teenage years as opportunities to learn, to grow, to appreciate each other, even if it's not perfect. You're setting yourself up for a lot more success than failure if you can change your thinking around that. As a final prompt, I would encourage parents to think about one thing that they're proud about for their teens. I find that teens can be pretty intuitive, pretty sensitive. They kind of know what's going on. They feel a lot of judgment and pressure. Just kind of building up your teen, even in your own mind, in terms of one thing that you're proud of them for, can really help place the conflict in the broader context of who this person is as an individual, the relationship, and the family unit. Thank you for watching. Please check out our website at www.pyramidpsychology.com if you'd like more information. There's a blog, there's tips and resources for parents and teens, and you can also access our Facebook and Instagram page from there. Thank you.